What's up, Wednesday? Hey guys, it's been on months I did one of these. Um, but after a good while of looking at different perspectives, especially within the conservative movement, wanted to come back and share some thoughts of my own. I kind of gained from that because, my goodness, tensions between different factions of the right are more heated than ever right now. And I really think they're just missing the point of what we're fighting for and what our values are by attacking each other for little things about Israel. So here we go. Yeah, so Iran's kind of slipping into a couple of factions right now. We got your people like Ben Shapiro and some other mainstream people, not all Jewish people, but people who are like very pro-Israel. And you have those like Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes. I'll even throw in Candace Owens, who are very skeptical of this, and it's kind of dividedness when we should really be focusing on the people that are trying to kill us and are wishing for our death, which is those on the far left. And so what's happening is we're kind of seeing an attack on our own values by our own side. I was watching a Matt Walsh episode recently where he said that where he said, "Hey, America first, America only," which means the only thing our leaders should be focused on is the interests of America, and anything we do globally on a global scale should be focused on our own interests and and if we don't benefit, then we shouldn't be involved, right? We shouldn't be giving away billions of dollars to foreign nations if it doesn't help us, right? Because at the end of the day, countries like Israel and like Ukraine rely on us way more than we rely on them. It's not necessarily a balanced give and take. It's more us helping them through things where we don't necessarily need to. Like, a lot of foreign governments are corrupt. And that's just the fact of the matter. And maybe that's not a popular thing to say. But the fact is that criticizing other governments is not racist, it's not anti Semitic, and I know there's the whole typical line of being anti-Israel is not anti-Semitic, and I disagree with that contention a little bit because Israel is like a Jewish state, and so it's kind of like you have to qualify that by saying hey, maybe the government's not doing some right things here and there. I think it's okay to criticize actions, but when it feels like going after a whole group of people, then it becomes something where I'm not so sure that we should be doing that. And this kind of comes back to conservative values here, and really it's just free speech, very American values party here, right? We have Constitution, and we live in the right we're very pro arms, sort of pro guns and stuff, and pro free speech, and all stuff, and for fair judicial process, and I think we're losing that in kind of doing what the left's done to us for a long time and giving to that cancel culture and doing things like, oh, well, this person said this crazy thing. Well, they should be deplatformed and taken down, and don't listen to them, and don't even bother going to see what they have to say for themselves. And I'll admit, I've gotten caught in this trap before of judging somebody else because of what I've heard about them, not because of what they've said themselves. And so this happened. And Ben Shapiro, while he has some good takes, has been a primary contributor in this. Talking about how Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes have been oh, the very harmful things they said are terrible, and then I go find the clips myself, what they said, and you can tell with Fuentes especially, you can tell that either A, he's joking or exaggerating, or B, he kind of seems to have a point, right? I don't think so. One thing I wanted to say was that he doesn't come across the right way with it, but women aren't always seeking the right men, and it is wild thing to get people hooked. It was oh, women want to get assaulted or something, right? But when you look at the context of the clip, he's saying how it's oh, well, they don't want a man with good values and who relies on God the most. They want someone who's just not gonna treat them well, gonna care about materialistic things only, and treat you like a princess in that aspect. And so with that, I can say, yeah, it's kind of a problem that's happening is that men are turning away from the dating scene, especially for marriage, because they see women with all these shallow values who are materialistic, who have all these crazy demands of men, and we don't feel like we can live up to them, and we don't feel it's right for us to live up to them. Or the fact that, like, oh, I don't want to live in a neighborhood with black people. And sure, on surface level, that might sound like, hey, that's hey, that's racist. You can't like say that like we're supposed to care about each other no matter what our race or skin color or anything. But when you think about it, the unfortunate truth is that a lot of the high crime areas in our country are primarily like African American neighborhoods. We see this in Memphis, in Chicago, and plenty of other places where a small portion of the population is making up a large portion of the crime. And when we talk about rap music being primarily black and how it glorifies violence, drug use, addictions like adultery, and how the kind of culture of that is not something like, personally, I want to live in a neighborhood that I know I'm safe and protected from like those violence. I don't want to be hearing gunshots in my neighborhood. I'll make sure like, hey, I can play outside in the front yard, or I can go to sleep at night and just not have to worry about these kind of things. I'm very fortunate to live in a neighborhood like that right now. But what's happening, and where I saw a video, a lot of people thanking Trump for putting the National Guard in Memphis because they could finally live in peace for the first time in 5-6 years. And so when we're trying to shut people down, for arguments saying like, oh, well, he said this, he said that, don't listen to him, don't love him, like, take him down, like, don't do anything to like support him. It's the idea, it's kind of the idea of like parental figure denying you something. Think about this. When you're a kid and your parent denies you something over and over and over again, it makes you more curious. It makes you say like, okay, why are they denying this? And especially if you don't hear that specific reasoning when they deny you something, it makes you want to explore it more. You want to say like, oh, well, maybe I do want to see that. And that's gonna happen to me when my parents saying like, because I was playing some Tucker Carlson clip, she was like, oh my gosh, she's got off the deep end, and dang, I can't believe you said that. And sure, some things Tucker I disagrry with, like how he said Ted Cruz is not intelligent. Obviously, I think he's one of the most like well-spoken senators we have in our country. Like, oh, Ben Shapiro hates America. I don't think Ben Shapiro hates America. He just also has Israel as a Jewish person, right? And so, but then he also has good takes like, hey, one of my like Christian beliefs that we should not have permanent enemies. That people can change, opinions can change, and we shouldn't shut someone down entirely because he did something one time, and that's not, I agree with. That's kind of how we fight cancel culture, saying like, hey, someone might say something bad one time, it doesn't mean we say, oh, well, they're forever canceled, they're forever a terrible person, and I will never, ever agree with that person ever again. And that's really in dangerous territory of like, yes, as Christians, we're not supposed to hold permanent grudges. I'm supposed to say, we can and we're supposed to challenge ideas, not the people behind the ideas. Not say like, oh, well, I guess they're a terrible person because they said this one thing and I don't like it, and so that's it. I'll never agree with them again. And that just creates like, yes, humans aren't perfect. We do sin, but we can also let go of sin and change. Opinions can change, ideas can change, actions can change. Dismissing an entire person and like neglect and saying like, oh, well, they'll never be, it'll be good again, and I can never trust them again, and I just will never listen to them again. It's just, it's really just, it's not the right attitude to have. And this is where I like people like Amir Odom, who provides like very balanced takes. Has a lot of things I agree with. And just, I have to say like, hey, at the end of the day, we might not like what someone says, but is it not better to challenge someone's idea and debate that respectively than just go after the person, personal attacks? And what comes about with this is a lot of like threats of violence, actual carried out violence, like we saw with Charlie Kirk. We'll have like doxing. We'll have where the swatting, where you give away someone's home address and say, oh, there's something happening in there, and a whole police raid comes to your house. And what happens when you have, especially the ratcheted up rhetoric of saying, oh, well, if I disagree with them, they're a Nazi, or they're a white supremacist, or using a bunch of labels to try to dehumanize them and say like, oh, well, because they said this thing I disagree with, like, no more, they're this, they're that, they're this, and using all sorts of labels that sound very bad, to try to humanize them and deplatform them and say, well, because they're this, I'll never listen to them. Because they're that, we can just discount everything they say. And it leads to a lot of actual real-world consequences, and especially like in the case of Fuentes, or Tucker Carlson, and we saw Charlie Kirk, it leads to actual violence and dangerous situations they're being put in where they don't feel safe under their own roof. And that's not the kind of country we're supposed to live in. It's not what conservative values stand for. It's not what American values stand for. I think it's time we finally come together together and remember what our values are, rather than splitting over little disputes and giving to the cancel culture that we've tried to fight for so many years. That's my takes today, guys. Hopefully everybody got something from it, and hoping to come back with closer to weekly videos, if not once every other week. So yeah, God bless.